The slam of the front door reverberated through the house like the final note of a funeral march. In that moment, as I stood there in the living room of our suburban Chicago home, my mother's silhouette disappearing into the night with her suitcase in hand, I realized that coming out as gay had cost me more than just her acceptance. It had shattered the only family I thought I had. It was a Tuesday evening in late spring, the kind where the air still carried a chill, but the trees outside our two-story brick house were bursting with fresh green leaves. Dinner had started, normally enough pot roast on the table, my father David flipping through the sports section of the newspaper, while Mom asked about my finals at Lincoln High. I had rehearsed the words 1,000 times in the mirror, in the car, even in the shower, but when I finally said them, my voice barely above a whisper, the silence that followed was deafening. "Mom, Dad, I'm gay." Her fork clattered against the plate. "What did you say, Roman?" Her voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and something sharper, anger. My father froze, his eyes darting between us. I repeated it steadier this time, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I'm gay. I've known for years and I can't hide it anymore. I don't want to." She stood up so abruptly her chair scraped the hardwood floor, leaving a long mark. "No, Roman. This isn't you. This is some phase, some influence from those friends at school or that internet nonsense. I raised you better than this, in a good Christian home." Her words cut deep, each one a dagger twisting in my chest. I tried to explain the years of confusion, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering why I felt different from the other boys, the relief that finally washed over me when I accepted it in my senior year. But she wouldn't listen. Her face twisted in pain and disappointment, tears streaming down her cheeks as she shook her head. "I can't stay here and watch you destroy your life and everything we built." Within an hour she had packed a bag, throwing clothes into the old blue suitcase I remembered from family vacations to Wisconsin Dells. "Tell your father I'll call him later. I need time to think, Roman. Time away from this." The front door slammed so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. She was gone. That night the house felt empty, even with my father still sitting at the kitchen table staring into his coffee. He hugged me awkwardly, his big hands patting my back like I was still 10 years old. "She'll come around, son. Give her time. Your mother loves you, she just needs to process." But as days turned into weeks, no call came. She moved in with her sister in Milwaukee and communication stopped completely. No texts, no birthday cards, nothing. The woman who had baked my favorite apple pie every Thanksgiving, the one who taught me to ride a bike and cheered at every little league game, had vanished. The summer after graduation was a blur of pain and self-doubt. I spent hours alone in my room, staring at the ceiling, replaying that dinner over and over, questioning if my truth was worth losing her. Friends from school tried to cheer me up with parties and video games, but the secret I had kept for so long was out, and the whispers followed me everywhere. Some supported me with awkward hugs and, "We're here for you, bro." Others distanced themselves, making excuses when I invited them over. The prejudice was subtle but real, jokes that weren't really jokes, stares that lingered too long at the grocery store when I walked with my best friend Jake, who everyone suddenly assumed was my boyfriend. To escape, I applied to New York University, majoring in psychology, hoping the bustling city would drown out the voices in my head. When the acceptance letter arrived in a thick envelope, it felt like a lifeline. My father drove me to O'Hare, his eyes misty as he helped unload my duffel bags. "Make us proud, Roman. And maybe one day she'll see the man you've become." The flight to JFK was the first time I breathed freely in months. New York hit me like a wave, the energy, the diversity, the anonymity, all of it liberating. My dorm room in the Village was small but mine, and on the first day of freshman orientation in the crowded art elective I first noticed Theodore. He was tall, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that filled the entire lecture hall. An art major from California, he carried himself with a confidence I envied. After class, he tapped my shoulder. "Hey, new guy, you look a little lost. Wanna grab coffee? I know a place that does killer lattes." That coffee turned into regular hangouts. Theodore was open, out and proud, talking freely about his supportive parents back in San Diego and the pride parades he marched in every June. I admired him but kept my past buried deep. As weeks passed, our friendship grew stronger. He introduced me to his circle, a mix of gay, straight, and everything in between, who celebrated who they were without apology. For the first time in my life, I felt seen not as the kid who lost his mom but as Roman, just Roman. But the nights were still hard. I would lie in my narrow dorm bed, remembering my mother's face, the disappointment in her eyes. Is this who I am? I would whisper to the darkness. The internal conflict raged, part of me desperate to embrace this new life, another part terrified I would end up alone just like she predicted. One evening after a brutal psych exam, Theodore noticed my mood as we walked through Washington Square Park. "You okay, man? You've been distant all week." I shrugged it off at first, but he persisted, his voice gentle. "Come on, Roman. We've been friends for months now. Spill it." Reluctantly, I told him everything: the slammed door, the empty house, the silence from Milwaukee. His eyes softened, and he put a hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, dude. That sucks more than words. But you're here now, building your own path. We're all here for you, whatever you need." His words were a balm, but the wound still ached fresh and raw. As the semester rolled on, I started volunteering at the local LGBT youth center, helping kids who reminded me of my younger self. It gave me purpose, and slowly the pieces of me started to fit together again. Theodore was always there, a steady presence through late-night study sessions and weekend explorations of the city. Little did I know this friendship was the beginning of something deeper, a journey that would test every part of me in ways I never imagined and lead me to a love I once thought impossible. The first snow of the semester dusted the streets of Greenwich Village, turning the city into a postcard I never wanted to leave. Theodore and I had fallen into an easy rhythm: coffee runs after class, late-night talks on the fire escape, and weekend gallery hops where he explained brushstrokes and color theory while I pretended to understand. He never pushed about my mother, but I could tell he sensed the shadows I carried. One Friday in December, we were at his favorite ramen spot in the East Village slurping noodles when my phone buzzed. It was my father. "Roman, your mother called. She wants to know how you're doing." My chopsticks froze midair. Theodore noticed immediately. "Bad news?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Just family stuff." But inside, the old ache flared. That night back in my dorm, I stared at the ceiling, replaying her voice in my head, the one that used to read me bedtime stories. Why now, after months of silence? The next week brought its own storm. My roommate Alex, a quiet finance major from Ohio, started acting strange, avoiding eye contact and leaving whenever Theodore stopped by. One evening, I came back from class to find him packing. "I'm transferring to a single room, Roman. Nothing personal, but I can't share space with all this." He gestured vaguely at the rainbow flag Theodore had given me for my wall. The betrayal stung deeper than I expected. I thought we were cool. Theodore found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes. "Hey, what happened?" I told him, and he listened without interrupting, then pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than friendship required. "You don't need that negativity, man. Come crash at my place tonight. My roommate's out of town." That night on his couch, we talked until dawn about everything: identity, fear, the weight of other people's expectations. For the first time, I admitted out loud how much my mother's departure had made me question if I deserved love at all. Theodore's voice was steady. "You deserve the world, Roman. And anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time." Spring semester brought new challenges. I landed an internship at a community mental health clinic working with LGBTQ+ teens. The stories I heard mirrored mine so closely it hurt but also healed. One kid named Marcus reminded me of myself at 16, scared and alone after his parents kicked him out. Helping him find housing and a support group gave me strength I didn't know I had. Theodore and I grew closer. He started inviting me to his art shows where his paintings, vibrant abstracts full of hidden rainbows, always sold out. One night, after a gallery opening, we walked along the High Line under string lights. "You know, you've changed me, Roman," he said quietly. "Before you, I thought I had it all figured out. Now I see how brave it is to start over." I felt my cheeks burn but didn't pull away when his hand brushed mine. Summer came fast, and with it my first trip home in a year. My father picked me up at O'Hare, looking older, thinner. "Your mother's still in Milwaukee. She asked about you again." The drive to Chicago was quiet except for the radio. At the house, everything looked the same yet different. My old room smelled of dust. That night, I sat on the porch staring at the stars, wondering if she ever regretted walking out. Back in New York, the misunderstanding hit like a freight train. Jake, my old high school friend, visited for a weekend. We went out with Theodore and a group. Jake got drunk and started making jokes. "So Roman finally found his Prince Charming, huh?" The table laughed, but Theodore's smile faltered. Later, Jake pulled me aside. "Dude, your mom called me last month. She's worried you're making a mistake." I told her, "You seem happy," but the betrayal burned. I had trusted him with everything. Theodore found me on the rooftop later, tears freezing on my cheeks in the cold wind. "He had no right," he said, wrapping his arms around me. In that moment, something shifted. The friendship that had carried me through the darkest months was turning into something warmer, deeper. I didn't say it yet, but I felt it in every heartbeat. The road ahead would have more misunderstandings, more tests, but for the first time, I wasn't facing them alone. Fall leaves painted Central Park in reds and golds, the perfect backdrop for the conversation I had avoided for months. Theodore and I had been dancing around our feelings since summer, stolen glances, lingering hugs, but neither of us wanted to risk the friendship that had become my anchor. One Saturday, we rented bikes and rode the entire loop, stopping at the Bethesda fountain. "Roman, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. "These past 2 years, you've become more than a friend. I'm in love with you." My heart stopped, then raced. The words I had practiced in my head came out in a rush. "I feel the same, Theo. God, I've felt it for so long, but I was scared." We kissed there under the angel statue, soft and tentative like the first warm day after winter. It wasn't fireworks, it was home. Our relationship bloomed quietly at first, study dates turning into real dates, picnics in Prospect Park, late-night movies where we held hands in the dark. But love brought new conflicts. My father flew out for parents' weekend and the dinner was tense. "So this is the boy you've been talking about," he said, shaking Theodore's hand stiffly. Later, alone, he pulled me aside. "Your mother called again, Roman. She heard you're seeing someone. A man. She's hurting, son. Maybe it's time to slow down, think about what you're doing to the family." The pressure sat heavy on my chest like the old doubts resurfacing. At the clinic, one of the teens I mentored, Marcus, asked me straight out, "Did your mom ever come back?" When I shook my head, he nodded wisely. "Mine didn't either. But I found my people. You will too." His words stayed with me. The real test came in March when an anonymous post appeared on a local forum outing several students, including me and Theodore, with old photos from a Pride event. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others vicious. My inbox filled with messages from distant relatives quoting scripture. Theodore's art professor even suggested he tone down his lifestyle for a prestigious fellowship. The betrayal felt personal. Someone from our circle had leaked it. We spent nights talking through the fear, the anger, the exhaustion of constantly defending our love. One weekend, we drove upstate to a cabin Theodore's parents owned. Snow fell softly outside as we sat by the fire. "I almost gave up on us last week," I confessed. The noise in my head sounded too much like my mother. He took my hands. "Then let's make our own noise louder. I choose you every day, Roman. No matter what." That weekend, we talked about the future, dreams of a life together, a home, maybe even kids one day. The internal crisis that had haunted me since that slammed door began to quiet. Back in the city, we faced the world together, attending protests, volunteering at the center side by side. Our friends threw us a small anniversary party complete with rainbow cupcakes. For the first time, I felt whole, not broken by rejection but strengthened by choice. Love wasn't erasing the pain, it was teaching me to carry it differently. The proposal happened on a crisp October evening, exactly 4 years after I first stepped off the plane at JFK. Theodore had planned everything: a private sailboat on the Hudson, champagne chilled, and a small velvet box hidden in his jacket. As the sun set behind the Statue of Liberty, he dropped to one knee. "Roman, you walked into my life when I thought I had everything figured out. You showed me what real courage looks like. Will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision as I said yes, pulling him up into a kiss that tasted like salt and forever. Planning the wedding became its own journey. We chose a small venue in Brooklyn Bridge Park for next June. Friends, family, whoever would come. My father agreed to walk me down the aisle, but his voice on the phone carried hesitation. Your mother found out Roman. She asked for an invitation. The words landed like stones. I hadn't spoken to her in 5 years. Part of me wanted to scream no, another part, the grown man I had become, wondered if closure was possible. Theodore supported whatever I decided. This day is about us, but if seeing her helps you heal, I'm with you. We sent the invitation anyway. Weeks passed, no response. Meanwhile, other conflicts arose. An old high school acquaintance posted on social media criticizing our agenda, tagging me in comments that went viral in our small circle. The misunderstanding spread. Friends took sides, some choosing silence. I confronted one former ally who had distanced himself. I thought you were cool with this. His reply stung. I am, but my family isn't. I can't lose them too. The hypocrisy burned, but it forced me to examine my own lingering doubts. Was I selfish for choosing love over the family that raised me? Therapy helped. My counselor, a kind woman named Dr. Patel, listened as I unpacked years of internalized shame. You didn't cause her to leave Roman. You only told the truth. The rest was her choice. Those sessions became my weekly anchor. Spring brought final exams and last-minute wedding details. Theodore's parents flew in early, warm and embracing, offering stories of their own interracial marriage decades ago. Love always finds a way, his mother said, hugging me. Their acceptance highlighted what I had lost, but also what I had gained. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived postmarked Milwaukee. My mother's handwriting on the envelope made my hands shake. Inside, one sentence. I'll be there. Margaret. No explanation, no apology, just that. Theodore held me as I cried, not from sadness, but from the storm of emotions I couldn't name. The night before the rehearsal dinner, I stood on our balcony overlooking the city lights. The boy who watched his mother walk away had become a man ready to walk toward forever. The sacrifices, the misunderstandings, the awakenings had all led here. I was no longer running from the past, I was building something stronger. The rehearsal dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant in Dumbo buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Theodore's family mingled with mine, my father laughing awkwardly with Theo's dad while friends shared embarrassing stories about us. I kept scanning the door, expecting my mother to appear any second, but she never did. The empty chair reserved for her stared back at me like a question mark. The next morning dawned bright and clear, perfect for our outdoor ceremony. Brooklyn Bridge Park glowed with white roses and string lights. Guests arrived in waves, old college friends, clinic kids, now young adults, even a few distant cousins who had chosen to come. Theodore looked stunning in his navy suit, eyes shining as we waited under the chuppah-style arch, our officiant a lesbian rabbi we had met at Pride. Then I saw her. My mother sitting quietly in the back row, wearing a simple blue dress, the same one she wore to my high school graduation. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just sat with hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the ground. My breath caught. Theodore squeezed my hand. You've got this. We've got this. The ceremony began with vows we had written together. I spoke first, voice steady despite the tremor. Theo, you walked into my life when I was lost and gave me a map back to myself. You taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about choosing each other every single day, even when the world says we shouldn't. I promise to keep choosing you through every storm and every sunrise. He wiped a tear, then spoke. Roman, you showed me bravery I never knew I needed. You turned pain into purpose and fear into hope. I promise to stand beside you as your husband, your partner, your home. Rings exchanged, kisses sealed under cheers and tears. As we walked down the aisle hand in hand, I glanced at my mother. Her face was wet with silent tears, but she didn't look away. The reception followed with dancing speeches and cake. My father danced with me first, then Theodore's mom cut in. Laughter filled the air, masking the undercurrent of tension. Later, during a slow song, Theodore and I swayed under the stars. My mother approached hesitantly. Roman, you look happy. Truly happy. Her voice cracked. I nodded, unable to speak. She continued, I was wrong to leave the way I did. I was scared, angry at the world, not at you. Watching you today, I see the man I always hoped you'd become, even if the path wasn't what I pictured. Tears fell freely now. I'm sorry, son. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm here. We didn't hug, not yet, but the wall between us cracked just a little. Theodore joined us, offering her a gentle smile. Thank you for coming, Margaret. It means more than you know. The moment wasn't perfect, no grand reconciliation, but it was real. The sacrifice of years apart, the misunderstandings, the betrayals by others had led to this fragile bridge. As the night wound down, guests left one by one, my mother included, with a quiet goodbye and a promise to call. Theodore and I stood on the pier watching the city lights reflect on the water. The journey that began with a slammed door had brought me here whole, loved and loving. The morning after the wedding, I woke in our new apartment overlooking the East River, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Theodore was already up, making coffee, the smell of fresh brew mixing with the faint scent of roses from the night before. We sat on the balcony, replaying every moment, the vows, the dance, the quiet conversation with my mother. She came, I said softly. After everything, she came. He nodded, kissing my forehead. And you stood tall. That's the man I married. Days turned into weeks. My mother called twice, tentative conversations about the weather, then deeper ones about regret and therapy she had started. We didn't fix everything overnight, but each call chipped away at the distance. My father visited, often bringing stories of Chicago and slowly warming to Theodore, calling him son one Sunday over brunch. At the clinic, Marcus graduated high school and invited us to his ceremony. Watching him walk across the stage, I saw my own reflection, the boy who once felt abandoned, now helping others find their way. Theodore's latest exhibition opened to rave reviews. One painting titled Doorway, a stark image of a closed door beside an open window. That's us, he whispered during the opening. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm, morning runs together, evening walks, work that mattered, friends who became family. The internal crises that once kept me awake now felt like distant echoes, lessons learned. The societal pressures still existed, headlines about rights, debates at family gatherings, but we faced them together, stronger for every misunderstanding, every sacrifice. One crisp autumn evening, we hosted a small dinner, my mother flying in from Milwaukee. She brought apple pie, the same recipe from my childhood. As we sat around the table, laughter flowing easily, she raised her glass to new beginnings and the courage to choose love. Her eyes met mine, no longer filled with disappointment, but with quiet pride. The awakening wasn't dramatic, but it was profound. Years later, looking back at the boy who watched his mother leave, I barely recognized him. The journey had been long, filled with confrontations, choices, and consequences, yet every step led me here, to a life defined not by loss, but by the family I built, the love I claimed, and the man I became. Theodore squeezed my hand across the table, smiling, that same smile from our first coffee date. True or false? A mother's love can only survive if it never encounters the truth of her child's heart.